Hello and welcome to the IND podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Dunicic. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join our growing international community. Now, our report takes us today to the deactivated Chernobyl nuclear power plant. For those of you that understand contemporary history or are fans of the HBO series Chernobyl, you know that in 1986, the plant was the location of one of the world's worst nuclear disasters. In fact, the world's worst nuclear plant-related disasters, when one of the plant's major reactors exploded, spreading radiation across what is now known as the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Now, ever since 1986 and this massive disaster, the plant and the area surrounding it, known as the exclusion zone, have been completely shut off, excluding the allowance for the occasional tourist, scientist, and other people working to contain the radiation. The site has not been used or truly set into. Now, that changed on February 24th when the Russian invasion of Ukraine began. Russia very quickly took many spots of Ukraine. One of them was the Chernobyl power plant, fully capturing the area and the exclusion zone around it. Now, as we've covered extensively in this report, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has met a massive Ukrainian resistance, and Russian soldiers, or Russian forces, are in fact pulling back in some areas. Now, as we have talked about previously on this podcast, it seems that this is just being done to regroup, resupply, and reinforce for a major offensive on eastern Donbass. Now, we are not going to go into detail covering the general war today. We're going to focus on what happened in Chernobyl. Russian soldiers are leaving the encampment in the former exclusion zone and the nuclear power plant. But why? It has nothing to do with previous Russian promises to withdraw some of their troops. The reason why is because Russian soldiers in the forest around and inside the exclusion zone of Chernobyl have been exposed to significant levels of radiation, with some soldiers experiencing initial symptoms of radiation poisoning and sickness. Because of this, Russian soldiers have decided to leave the area under the military command. Now, the reality is that this exposure is probably not that heavy. Yes, the 1986 disaster in Chernobyl was massive, and the amount of radiation that was spread by it, not just in the immediate area, but regionally and globally, was insurmountable and something that we could not describe in this podcast alone. But over the years and decades, this radiation has subsided. And radiation tends to go into the ground. Think of radiation as like soap and the ground as a sponge. It just goes into it. This is a very layman's description by a person that knows absolutely nothing about radiation. But nonetheless, keep following me. Now, this radiation goes into the soil of the ground. And when this soil is dug into, this radiation is going to be released. And there are some spots in the ground that have more radiation than others. These are what's known as hot spots. Now, these hot spots obviously contain a significantly larger amount of radiation than other land or soil in the area. What specifically happened to Russian soldiers for them to be exposed to large amounts of radiation was not their presence in Chernobyl or the exclusion zone itself. But problems began when these Russian forces began to dig trenches to begin encamping and create defenses against encroaching Ukrainian soldiers. Now, what they did is they began to dig trenches in and prepare some form of defenses. Now, as soon as they dug into this earth, they must have hit some kind of hotspot, which unleashed radiation on the soldiers that were digging. Now, it's highly unlikely that this radiation spread from soldier to soldier to soldier, and that we're having some mutated, radiant Russian soldier monsters running around the Chernobyl or Pripyat forest. But what did definitely happen is that a few soldiers were exposed to radiation, started developing some forms of sickness, and the Russian command, realizing that its soldiers no longer want to be in the area and get sick themselves, decided to pull out. Now, this is not a major loss for Russia. Chernobyl is not that strategically important, but it is something that people used to be concerned about when Russia controlled the area. There was a concern that the radiation surrounding the area could intentionally be released, or the concrete dome, which In Tomes, the reactor that exploded in the 1986 disaster could be blown up, releasing radiation all over Ukraine and, subsequently, Europe, if not the entire world. Now, Russia notably did not do that, and Russia is leaving the Chernobyl zone simply because it's more hassle to carry and hold that area and territory than it's worth. Now, this does come at a time where Russian soldiers have generally been demoralized and what seems like incompetent. Now, not only have Russian forces dug trenches into highly radiated hotspots, which, by the way, can be detected with Geiger counters, but apparently that oversight was not taken. Russian soldiers in recent weeks have actually also shot down one of their own aircraft and have reportedly been sabotaging their own equipment to not have to go into battle. When they do have to go into battle, many have simply been not following orders. Understand that these soldiers inside Ukraine are not the stereotypical hardcore Russian special forces operative. Like most world militaries, the Russian army is made up of young people who are just looking for some kind of social benefit, either a paycheck, a scholarship, better healthcare, or just to advance themselves in life or build a career in the Russian military. Many of these soldiers have no political leaning or desire to be in Ukraine, and they just simply want to get out, and they don't want to be in this brutal, terrible fighting which the Ukrainians have been presenting because, unlike Russian soldiers, they aren't there for a paycheck. They are there defending their homeland and what is theirs. Now, this does come at a time where Russia and Ukraine have kind of been hinting at making some form of peace agreement, though any kind of actual peace agreement seems unlikely. Vladimir Putin has not expressed any interest in meeting with Zelensky just yet, and until the two world leaders sit down and meet and hash out an actual agreement, there will not be peace in this conflict. It's going to continue. And as the Russian war continues, we're going to be faced with more absurd incompetencies like soldiers digging into radiation hotspots. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you guys tomorrow.